Well, hi, welcome to SoCal Insider. I'm Rick Reef. Well, frat boys running around campus in grass skirts and coconut bras sounds like a party. But at UC Irvine, the fraternity's been sanctioned for offending Pacific Islanders. Was this a learning moment or political correctness run amok? Also, after 2 years of lavish spending to hire reporters and launch publications, the owners of the Orange County Register are now cutting back drastically. Was their idea for saving newspapers by doubling down on print just too good to be true? Well, we'll discuss. But first, a ruling heard round the education world. Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Rolf Troy has struck down laws that protect the jobs and seniority rights of California public school teachers. Many are calling it the most important school ruling in 60 years since the historic desegregation case, Brown versus Board of Education. David Nazar, what's the story?
Yeah, Rick, this is a huge ruling for LA Unified and other California school districts. It's one that could impact schools all across the country. Basically, if the ruling stands, school administrators in California will have much more leeway in hiring and firing teachers. Here's a quick review. The name of the case is Vergara versus California. It was filed by parents on behalf of 9 school kids, one of them an LA Unified High School student named Beatriz Vergara. The suit argued that California's laws on teacher tenure and other job protections cause a host of problems for schools, making it almost impossible to get rid of bad teachers, for example. And that dynamic deprives kids, especially poor kids, of their constitutional right to a quality education. These kids had top-notch lawyers paid for by an education reform group called Students Matter. The organization is funded by wealthy Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur David Welch. Now, while the suit did not name the teachers' unions, the unions did join the case on the state side, and this issue really turned into a battle between the reformers versus the unions. There was a little over a month of testimony earlier this year, and this week, Judge Rolf Troy decided entirely for the plaintiffs, declaring all 5 of the contested teacher protection laws as unconstitutional. The judge was really tough on the state. Troy said the plaintiffs' evidence was, quote, compelling and shocks the conscience. He said there is no dispute that there is a significant number of grossly ineffective teachers in California classrooms. Judge Troy also said the state's own witnesses often made the plaintiff's case for them, agreeing, for example, that it would be better for California if it took longer for teachers to get tenure. And Judge Troy even invoked the historic Brown case, saying that case was about equality of education, while this case, Vergara, was about quality of education. However, the judge did stay his order, meaning it won't take effect while appeals are going on. And indeed, the unions have already said they will appeal. And Rick, a lot of folks are already saying this historic case will eventually be heard in the U.S. Supreme Court.
So, David, who's been commenting on this decision?
Well, you know, as you might expect, almost every education reform group is praising the ruling while union leaders are blasting it. Rick, there is a guy, you've actually had him on the show, Dean Vogel. He's the president of the California Teachers Association. He said the ruling, like the lawsuit, is, quote, deeply flawed. Vogel said, and again, I'm quoting, this lawsuit has nothing to do with what's best for kids and was, quote, manufactured by a Silicon Valley millionaire and a corporate public relations firm to undermine the teaching profession and push their agenda on our schools. That's the end of the quote. Although, Rick, on the flip side, President Obama's Education Secretary Arne Duncan said the court decision is a mandate to fix problems in public education. Duncan also said basically he hopes the ruling takes the battle out of the courtroom and encourages the state to act in a collaborative process with all the stakeholders, obviously, to improve education. So those sentiments were echoed by LA Unified Superintendent John Daisy, who, as you remember, was one of the plaintiff's star witnesses in the case. Daisy said the decision is a call to action to begin implementing the solutions that will hopefully help address the problems highlighted during the trial, Rick.
Well, you know, that's going to be interesting. State lawmakers and other state officials being called on to implement the ruling. But, you know, I'm wondering if they would dare move ahead before the unions exhaust their appeals, because let's face it, California's lawmakers are not known for defying the teacher unions. And anyway, in that vein, David, any comment from Governor Brown or Attorney Kamala Harris? After all, they were the defendants in this case. And what about LA's Mayor Eric Garcetti?
Well, truth be told, I've been on the phone with both Garcetti and Governor Brown's office, and as we are taping this show right now, no word back from them. Also, just an FYI, there has been a statement from State School Superintendent Tom Torlakson. However, it seemed pretty muted, you might say. Torlakson kind of started out by saying that he has no direct jurisdiction over the statutes challenged in the case. Then, though, he said, quote, teachers are not the problem in our schools, they are the solution.
Well, boy, I'll tell you, I mean, maybe the most important case in the history of K through 12 education in California. We have a strong statement from the National Secretary of Education, and state officials have nothing or very little to say. Anyway, thank you, David. And now, I'm joined by one of the leading education reformers in California and the nation, former State Senate Majority Leader, and now Director of the Foundation for Parent Empowerment, Gloria Romero. Gloria, welcome back.
Thank you.
You have fought a long, hard fight inside and outside of the legislature on school reform. How are you feeling today?
Well, I will tell you, California ultimately won the Triple Crown. It was in chrome, it was gold. These students have achieved a historic victory, not only for the 6.3 million kids in California today, but for students for the ages. And this decision is resonating across the nation. It is a wonderful day for equality in California.
Yeah, how is it resonating across the nation?
Again, every education reformer is praising the decision. This is one that is so obvious. It really is that effective teachers matter. That teachers should be retained in a school system, not just based on the first date of hire, but on their value, their merit, their effectiveness in a classroom. It shouldn't take years to fire a grossly incompetent teacher.
So are we going to see more lawsuits then in other states?
I believe so, but the good news is that actually other states in the nation have already begun to revise and revamp their own teacher employment and dismissal statutes. The issue, though, in California is the reason that plaintiffs had to go to court is exactly what you raised in your opening. It's been the intransigence and the unwillingness of legislators to actually do the right things for students, forcing then 9 brave children in California to go to court in the legacy of the Brown children many years ago.
Okay, now we should mention that the California Teachers Association was invited to be on today. They've been on in the past with you, and they said they couldn't do it on short notice. They did send us the statement that David referenced, but since they're not here, you've got the floor, Gloria. So anyway, what happens next? All right, you've won this case. What's going to happen? What's going to change?
Well, what I would urge, and it is disappointing that we have not heard one word from Governor Brown, but I believe the next step should be that Governor Brown should immediately drop any appeal process in the name of the people of the state of California and call the legislature into a special session. Forget that crazy bullet train. Let's talk about education. Call a special session of the legislature. The legislature now has an opportunity to finally do the right thing. Bring stakeholders to the table so that we can figure out what is due process, what is tenure, what's the appropriate path to tenure, and to make sure that every child has a quality, effective teacher, and there isn't this disproportionality of ineffective teachers, especially in high poverty, high minority neighborhoods.
Do you think that's going to happen?
It should. But I think it's up to the people of California to also make our voices known. Remember, this lawsuit was filed against we the people. Governor Brown, Kamala Harris, I believe as well too, shame on her. She should immediately stop the appeal, not walk into a court of law to argue against minority and poor children's right to an effective teacher. So I think it is an opportunity for the new leaders of the Senate, the new leader of the Assembly, to say, let's roll up our sleeves. It is a difficult issue, but it's decades in coming. And now with this ruling from Judge True, it really is one that says our conscience should be shocked that we have allowed this to occur for so many years.
As you know, though, the union's position is that this is really an attack on teachers, and that for the sake of getting rid of a small percentage of bad teachers, you're jeopardizing all teachers in public schools.
Well, they're going to say that because they have no other credible defense. Remember, the last time that CTA was sitting next to me, they said, oh, this is about privatizing schools. They will say anything to maintain the privileges and perks that are for teachers in the K through 12 system alone. Remember, tenure exists in the university system, but it takes 7 years to get tenure in the California State University system. In our community colleges, it's 3 years. In New York, in Connecticut, in other states in the nation, they've begun to move towards just giving administrators a longer period of time to basically be able to evaluate the effectiveness of teachers so that if they need to be dismissed, there is ample time. This is about making teachers better and stronger rather than an attack.
What do you worry most about? Because after all, this was a judge, a trial judge making the decision. It's going to be appealed. What are the chances that it's going to be overturned?
Well, we'll see. It has a long way to go. But I believe that in looking at the ruling from this particular judge, he nailed it on all points. The students had standing. This is a real case. It's been a travesty of justice that we've had. I think the other issue as well, too, is that it was so important for the plaintiffs to walk into a court of law, but because we know that this would not have been achieved via the legislature because of the close tie between legislators, their campaign war chest, and the teachers union. So it had to be deemed unconstitutional to basically give us a tabula rasa, a blank slate from which to have a new opportunity to really construct a public education system that works for teachers and kids, and I'm going to put kids first.
I suspect that as much as you have been involved in this, has the public really been aware of this? And you talk about the need for public involvement. Is this going to change attitudes of people?
I believe that already we've seen changed attitudes. And so I think that this further reinforces the understanding of the public. But understanding can get lost when it comes to political action. That's where this ruling, as important as it is, it's not going to resolve all issues in the public education system. There are many other factors that will have to be evaluated as well. And ultimately, as I've argued before, we have to change the way in which we do campaign finance reform and the mandatory obligation of union members to turn over their own political dues, their own money for political causes that members themselves may not even support, but their executive boards order.
Okay, well, Gloria, thanks so much. I'm sure we will have you back on because the story is hardly over.
Not over yet. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. A couple of journalists will give their views on this case and other stories next.
We believe in the excitement of exploration, that life offers each of us adventures that are ours for the taking. We believe that children are born explorers who need trusted guides on their journeys of discovery. We believe in breaking new ground and in challenging assumptions, that important questions deserve to be explored deeply, fairly, and honestly. And we believe that who you are and where you come from should never stand in the way of what you want to be. This is who we are. This is what we believe. This is PBS.
There is one stage that is the Met and Carnegie Hall. It is the Kennedy Center and a club in Austin. It is closer than any seat in the house, no matter where you call home. PBS, the great American stage that fits in every living room. Supporting your PBS station brings the arts home.
And joining me on this edition of Consider This, MundoFox 22 reporter Anabel Munoz and editor of Watchdog.org, Will Swaim. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Anabel, as you're going around doing your reporting, how have folks been reacting to this Vergara case and the decision?
Well, I think there's all sorts of reaction, but there's definitely a lot of reaction. Like we saw in David's package, new teachers seem to be excited. Unions seem to be not so happy about this. Parents seem to be very intrigued because many parents are very involved in their children's education and have been wanting to see something like this for some time. So I think there's a little bit of everything. But what's very interesting about this entire case is to see that the plaintiffs are 9 students. I mean, that's very, very fascinating.
Yeah, and in fact, people can see this thing online. I thought that Beatrix's Vergara's testimony was pretty compelling. I mean, here you have this young young lady and talking about good teachers, bad teachers. I thought it was very interesting. But how do the parents come down? I mean, after a lot of kids love their public schools, the parents love the public schools. Are they, are they saying, yeah, we should change, or hey, why upset the apple cart?
Well, I'll tell you one parent that I was listening to, really, her focus was, if we're going to have tenure for teachers, they've really got to earn it, and it's got to be in a lot more than 16 to 18 months or 2 years. And they're really saying, prove to us that you deserve this by giving our children a quality education.
So, Anabel, what's your own education background? Where did you go to school?
I grew up mostly in the cities of Paramount and Bellflower, and I grew up in public schools. I had some really great teachers along the way, and some that were maybe not as great as the others, but I think that it's definitely crucial to have teachers in the classroom who really care, who are dedicated, who are passionate about what they are doing. In my case, English was not my first language. So I remember the transition from a bilingual classroom to an all English speaking classroom. And I really think that the teacher I had that year, Mr. Foster, was really crucial in making sure that the rest of my years in K through 12 would happen successfully.
The best teacher I ever had was an English teacher, too. How about Will? How about you? What's your background?
I am a dual product of the Catholic school system for its blessings and its curses, and also public schools. So I went to the old Mission San Juan Capistrano, right down here, Father Sarah's School, 1776, right? And then I went to Mater Dei for a year, Mission Viejo High School. My mother's a public school teacher. I went to USC as an undergrad, and I went to UC Irvine as a graduate student. So I'm all over private and public school.
And how about your kids?
All Irvine Unified School District. Yeah.
A good one, right?
A very good school district. People fight to get into that school district. Right.
Okay, so how do you feel about this case, Will?
Oh, I think it's absolutely essential. Look, if you don't have in any organization the right to correct poor performance, you really have no authority over your organization. This just allows, I think, principals and school districts and even parents and even other teachers to hold up great teaching as something that ought to be rewarded. The idea that it takes $400,000 in years to get rid of poor performers is absurd. It's an abuse of the tenure system, which was designed, after all, I think, primarily to protect researchers at the university level who might be engaged in provocative or sort of, culture-defying investigations. Go back to the Scopes monkey trial on evolution. I mean, that might be a cause for some kind of tenure. But the fact is that at the school level, the elementary school level, the high school level, tenure is more about job security, and most teachers don't require a tenure protection to protect their jobs. They've got their jobs because they are effective. And I can imagine that a lot of teachers, I don't have to imagine, I have talked to a lot of teachers who in fact feel that this will lift some of the scorn that some people have for their profession. Because I think everybody is injured when a few bad people get to stay in the system year in, year out, and there's absolutely no corrective performance there.
Yeah, Anabel, you referenced the young teachers. What is the sense of teachers? I mean, how do they feel about this?
Well, I spoke to a new teacher, a new young teacher who right now is subbing at a school district and is really hoping to get a full-time job. And what I'm constantly hearing from her is, I'm really just waiting for someone to retire. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime soon. And she seems to be very frustrated in some instances, not only because there are many teachers who have that tenure, who don't seem like they're going to retire, but also don't seem to have that level of dedication for their students. And what she's basically telling me is that she does support some type of security for teachers because they are public servants at the end of the day. But she says the way that it's been working right now really doesn't encourage new teachers to go out and seek these jobs because they're not there.
Yeah, one thing that, one thing that surprises me about this, there have been other challenges to public employee unions, on other issues, not necessarily teachers, and the courts have been pretty strong that these are contracts, and it doesn't matter. These are deals, and this judge seems to be saying this is unconstitutional. You don't have a deal anymore. Are you surprised by that?
I'm surprised the judge was so, let's say, candid or provocative in his description. What did he say, that this was, in David's package, this shocks the conscience? What's at stake here is more than the job security of a few poor performers. What's at stake here, of course, is like Brown versus Board of Education level concern about entire generations being written off. in order to protect a few very bad performers. The vast majority of teachers are great. They've got nothing to worry about under the new rules if they would ever come to be passed by this crazy legislature. That's a big question we could deal with.
All right, Will, let's move on to a new topic, and that's Freedom Communications, which owns the Orange County Register, as well as now the Los Angeles Register, the Long Beach Register, and the Press Enterprise and the Inland Empire. They were on a 2-year growth binge saying, doubling down on old media. You know, we're going to do more print, not less. Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, this is, you know, there were a lot of critics along the way. So let's start by saying that being an entrepreneur does not assure your success, right? Americans love a success story. Let's admit that Aaron Kushner and his partners really had a vision. They followed it. There were a lot of critics. I was one of them. And it now appears they were wrong. And it's not for lack of optimism and trying. They really did have a commitment to trying to produce, as you said, they doubled down on print. They increased the size of the newsroom. Their argument was that if you just improve the quality of the newspaper, more people will buy it. If we build it, they will come. And the problems associated with the print model are so legion and so well understood, I think, probably even by just general viewers of this program, that we don't really need to get into all of them. But the bottom line is declining readership, aging readership, declining advertising revenue, lack of support for the newsroom. These guys defied all of that and said, no, we can make this thing work. And, you know, now they're in a real financial
Of course,
crunch.
they are still saying it's going to work.
Absolutely.
This is a retrenchment.
They continue to say this as just a reorganization constantly.
Right.
And I
but
think that's right.
it does seem this was the bet. This was that we're going to change the whole culture. We're going to, you know, double down, and it looks like a real tough slog here.
And I think that betting on great journalism and betting on more reporters and more local news, I think that's all wonderful. But when you don't devote or really invest in online media, I think that's really one of the things that probably played a part
now,
here.
I'm sorry, I've got to jump in because we got to get to the last topic. We've only got a little time
You're
left.
going to make us talk about a party.
What I have to talk
More
about the
important than
coconut. I
media.
want to talk about coconut bras and grass skirts. So you got these frat guys. They have parties. It's a fundraiser, and now you know they told them bad because you're insulting Pacific Islanders. What do you make of this?
Well, let me just say that this reminded me of a local case at an Anaheim high school, Canyon High School, I believe. And this was maybe last year. And what happened in this case is that a few students were dressed up for International Week, and it was Señores and Señoritas Day. So the theme was really kind of a Mexican culture. But some of the students showed up dressed as gardeners, as ICE officers, as pregnant women pushing strollers. And really, it wasn't just about dressing up like that culture, but really some negative costumes, and really that is no longer implemented. So I see how this really strikes a chord with someone's background and history and culture, and making sure that that's respected.
Yeah, I should make clear this was at UC Irvine that this party took place. And Will, you know, the Washington Redskin, no more. Are we just in a new age where we have to be very sensitive and you just can't offend people?
There's no question we're in a newer age, and it will get newer after this. And people who today feel that this is outrageous will themselves be in the position I'm in, which is saying that, you know, at a certain level, you can't ask the world to be carpeted for yourself, and that maybe you just want to put on a pair of shoes, as the old Arabic saying goes, I think. I think in high school, that's absolutely wrong. I mean, kids have to go to high school. There's a requirement by law. You got to be there. And to do that to kids is different. But to do this in college, it's like, get ready for the real world, my friend. You will be criticized there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
You can watch this show and past shows at rickreef.com. Segments of the show can also be viewed at pbssocal.org. My guests have been Gloria Romero, Anabel Munoz, and Will Swaim. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again on SoCal Insider.
SoCal Insider with Rick Reef is brought to you by the following. 5 Point Communities is a proud sponsor of PBS SoCal. 5 Point Communities is an independent real estate development company with assets under management across California. More information available at www.fivepointcommunities.com. Snell & Wilmer is a full-service business law firm with more than 400 attorneys practicing throughout the West and in Mexico. With offices in Los Angeles and Orange County, Snell & Wilmer celebrates 25 years in Southern California. Online at swlaw.com. Skits. In our technology-driven world where constant connection to electronic devices is a way of life, Skits tech cases keep your electronic cords and accessories portable and organized so you can stay connected. For more information, visit skitsproducts.com.
A healthy future for you, your family, and your business is why Memorial Care Health System transformed healthcare. Our hospitals, physicians, and outpatient centers keep patients healthy and care for them when they're not. Memorial Care, one healthcare system leading the way.
The nice thing about City National for me is that they've been the same from the time I started my business to the time I sold my business. And the most important thing I think you can decide is who you're going to choose to protect and to help me to run my business better. City National is definitely the way up for me and my business.